New York City's first airport was not JFK or LaGuardia. It was actually Floyd Bennett Field. So how come this airfield did not become a commercial center like LaGuardia or JFK? Well, we'll answer this question in this episode of Origins by looking at the history of Floyd Bennett Field.
The area we now know as Floyd Bennett Field was actually an island called Barren Island. The airfield was created by connecting Barren Island and several smaller islands to the rest of Brooklyn by filling the channels between them with sand pumped from the bottom of Jamaica Bay. If you're not familiar with where Floyd Bennett Field is located, it is in Brooklyn, situated at the end of Flatbush Avenue by the Jamaica Bay. After World War I, commercial aviation really began to take off, and New York City was in dire need for an airport. The Hoover Committee, which consisted of representatives from New York and New Jersey, decided to investigate locations for a municipal airport to be built for New York. 6 locations were suggested, and out of the 6, Barren Island was the preferred one because of its flat land and good wind conditions. Now that a site has been selected, city officials unanimously approved the construction of Barren Island Airport in 1928.
Barren Island Airport was renamed when Navy pilot Floyd Bennett had died during a rescue mission. Floyd Bennett is known for being the first person to fly to the North Pole and receive the Medal of Honor for this achievement. Ironically, he had visited Barren Island with his wife Cora and had told her that same moment, "Someday, this place will be a great airport." Barren Island Airport was renamed the same year Floyd Bennett had died.
After construction was completed, Floyd Bennett Field was formally opened in May of 1931. Now, despite receiving AAA ratings as an airport, Floyd Bennett Field never became a commercial success. And that is mainly for 2 reasons. The first one is that the 30s experienced the Great Depression, so people weren't flying much in the first place. The second is Floyd Bennett Field was located at the outermost of Brooklyn, really far from Manhattan. In fact, there was no direct highway connecting Floyd Bennett Field to the city, so therefore, the only way someone could get from Floyd Bennett Field to Manhattan was via Flatbush Avenue, which experienced a lot of local traffic. People estimated the commute time from Floyd Bennett Field to downtown Manhattan to be about an hour to an hour and a half, and this made Floyd Bennett Field very unattractive to commercial airlines. Therefore, commercial airlines chose Newark Airport instead because it had a direct highway to Manhattan.
I still think Floyd Bennett Field will become a major airport. If you haven't heard, Brooklyn is the future of New York City. I can easily see this borough having its own airport, removing its dependency from JFK and LaGuardia. People will fly straight into Brooklyn via Floyd Bennett Field Airport and be dropped off straight into the main artery of Brooklyn, Flatbush Avenue.
Now, despite failing commercially, Floyd Bennett Field still played an important role in what's known as the golden age of aviation. Many aviation records were set flying to or from Floyd Bennett Field.
There are so many aviation records that took place from Floyd Bennett Field that the list is simply too long for me to go through. However, I will give you a couple to know if you want street cred from New Yorkers or people in the aviation community.
Wiley Post, aka One-Eyed Wiley, makes the world record for being the first man to travel solo around the world using flight aviation. He traveled 15,957 miles. His flight took off from Floyd Bennett Field and returned to Floyd Bennett Field. He had spent 7 days, 18 hours, and 49 minutes traveling the world. Many pilots try to break One-Eyed Wiley's record, but it's not until an aviator and businessman named Howard Yu that this record would be broken. Howard Yu took off on his silver monoplane from Floyd Bennett Field to a trip around the world that took 3 days, 19 hours, and 17 minutes. He shattered Wiley's record. Congratulations, Howard Yu. You deserve the Aviator movie. Now, there are many other records that happened from Floyd Bennett Field. The first 2 women to cross the transatlantic happened from Floyd Bennett Field. However, this record-breaking pattern in aviation would stop when World War II popped off. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Navy needed a strip for its air squadron and sought to acquire Floyd Bennett Field for that purpose. On February 9th, 1942, the Navy acquired the land for $9.2 million from New York City. Floyd Bennett Field was officially renamed into Naval Air Station New York. It would stay under the Navy's hand all throughout the World War, all the way up until after Vietnam. It wasn't until the 70s, when the Navy was offloading property to pay for its past war expenses, that Floyd Bennett Field would be back in the market. At the time, there were 3 separate politicians with different visions for Floyd Bennett Field. The first one was Mayor John Lindsay, who I talk about in a different video as being the pioneer of pocket parks in New York City. Mayor Lindsay wanted Floyd Bennett Field to become a commercial airport for Brooklyn, which I believe will still happen in the future. The second politician was Governor Nelson Rockefeller, who would later become Vice President of the United States. A side note, Governor Nelson Rockefeller was the pioneer behind the MTA. He more or less suggested the inception of the MTA. Anyway, Nelson Rockefeller is the son of billionaire philanthropist John D. Rockefeller. His mother, Abigail, was the driving force behind the establishment of the Modern Museum of Art, aka the MoMA. What Governor Nelson Rockefeller wanted for Floyd Bennett Field was for it to become a mall and a condominium complex. The third politician was President Nixon himself. Richard Nixon had a different vision altogether for Floyd Bennett Field. He wanted it to become a recreational park. And of course, out of the 3, President Nixon got his wish. On September 1972, Floyd Bennett Field was transferred to the National Park Services with the focus on it becoming a center for recreational activities. The park was officially opened in 1974 and was a colossal failure. After years of poor funding, the National Park Services stopped maintaining Floyd Bennett Field, and it is now mostly just an abandoned place. For those of you who like to urban explore, you could find secret spots inside Floyd Bennett Field by checking out the Cityscape app. Now, who knows what will become of this abandoned spot? I sense that it will be a great airport in 50 years. We'll see.
That's it for this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want more street information. And of course, don't forget to download the Cityscape app if you want to find cool secret spots like this abandoned naval air station. That's it for this episode, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.